It's all terror, and what happened to me in those years that I was in that circle it ruined basically half of my life. It's not all what they say it is.
Before it turned to terror, Wendy's life was spent schmoozing with gamblers at the most famous casino of the 70s, Benny Binion's Horseshoe Club, where she fell under the wing of son Teddy Binion and was passed on to her future husband, mob enforcer Tom Hanley.
I think whatever the mob needed anything done from back in Chicago, or I think Tom was contacted, but he mostly worked for Benny.
Hanley gave her security, a child, and rare moments of laughter.
Piles of jewelry, those little traveling suitcases back then that and then they would just dump them out. And I'd just be down there going through all the jewelry and putting it everywhere. I had a ring on every finger and jewelry just gogging.
But there were dark times, like at a grocery store, when a man mentioned how pretty Wendy was.
And Tom went ballistic. He pulled out a gun, stuck it to the guy's head, and started screaming at him. And when we got back to the house, there were probably 20 Metro officers there with shotguns pointing at Tom.
Powerful connections kept Hanley out of jail, but that was not the only time Hanley's temper erupted.
The first time I met Tony Spilotro is when he knocked on the door, and I answered the door, and Tom was coming right behind me, and he was making remarks, because I was pregnant at the time, and he was making remarks to Tom, "Is that your daughter? Who is that?" And then Tom said, "That's my wife." And he says, "Wow, you sure did get a youngie, didn't you?" Then the next thing I knew, Tom had pulled out a gun, stuck it to his head, made him drop to his knees, and by then I was moving away into the front room, and he made Tony Spilotro crawl to me and apologize for what he had said. Tom was a brutal maniac, psychotic hitman, yeah.
Hanley's cover job was an air conditioning repairman. His only repair work was at the culinary union for culinary boss and friend Al Bramlett. In reality, when the culinary had trouble with a restaurant, Bramlett would send Hanley over to send a message with a bomb.
I thought they were extremely close. I thought they were the best of friends.
But trouble was brewing for these friends. The International Culinary Union wanted to take control of the local and sent Tony Spilotro to explain it to Bramlett.
After Spilotro had beat him up, Al had called the house, and Tom and I went over and helped him clean up his wounds and calmed him down. Al was afraid, and so Tom and I started walking Al out to his car every day. And Tom was acting kind of like his shield. "I'll protect you."
Then, Wendy says, Tom got calls from the head of the International Culinary, Ed Hanley, no relation to Tom, and Benny Binion.
We went up and met Morris Schinker up at the Dunes, up in his penthouse, up at the top, his penthouse office. And then a couple of days later, Al Bramlett had disappeared. The one person that Al trusted. When Tom came home, there was a fire going in the front room, and he had spots all over his jacket, and he just he proclaimed his love for me, kind of. He gave me a big hug. "I love you, Winifred." And the funny thing is the clothes that Tom had taken off after he killed Al Bramlett, he never started the washing machine. They were in there, and when the police searched the house, they never bothered to look in the washer.
When Bramlett's body was found months later, Tom and his son Granby Hanley took Wendy to Phoenix to hide. Tom sent Wendy back to Vegas on errands, once to pick up money, another to fetch a silencer. On her last trip, a police informant tricked her into revealing the location of Al Bramlett's buried jewelry. Facing a murder charge and thinking of her child, Wendy decided to testify.
Before, when I was going to testify, I was getting calls from Tom and other people suggesting that I'm really worried about your mother. I'm really worried about your mom, Wendy. I'm really worried about her. And after I testified in Granby's trial, my mother died a few months later of a supposedly stroke.
Despite that, Wendy cooperated with law enforcement and says she'll do it again. Does the mob still exist in Las Vegas?
I believe so. I won't answer the door. I'm always peeking out, always peeking through the shades. I've lived on both sides of the fence. I've lived on the bad side with the bad people, and I've lived on the good side. And I would prefer the good side any day over the bad side.